Hopefully you can all hear me. Please speak. Please let me know you can hear me. Somebody signal. Somebody say you can hear me. Any waving, any thumbs up, anything is good. Anything is good. It's always that moment of total silence when you start something and everybody's still coming back to the room and getting themselves organized and everything. And you're like going, is there anybody out there? It's all good stuff. It's all good stuff. Okay, so we're going to go through a conversation, a dialogue. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to label this next sort of, well, period of time. But I'm going to talk about change management versus project management and kind of unpack really some perceptions, misconceptions, some challenges and spaces around, do they compete? Do they partner? Are they even in the same space? And what that means for everybody. So I'm going to go through, share some stuff with you on slides. I welcome any comments throughout, questions, etc. But I will have a space at the end for any sort of meaningful questions. So, you know, if it's something you really want to get meaty and juicy into, then maybe we can have a bit more of a deeper conversation towards the end of the session on that stuff. But I do welcome this to be as interactive as you want it to be. It's your space to share with me. So let's see if we can get things underway and start moving. So a little about me, where to talk. So I could probably fill the next 45 minutes just talking about me. Not that I'm egocentric or anything like that, but just because I've got such a variety of stuff. But what's important to share for this space is that I've spent actually 28 years working in the change management space. And it was actually 28 years about 10 days ago, which is kind of scary. But my very first experience of working in a change event was when my office manager came up to me and said, we're closing these 3 offices over there and people seem to like you. So can you go and talk to them and make them happy about this? Because they probably won't be happy. And that was my kind of exposure to change and change management. Go make people happy about things they wouldn't otherwise be happy about. Since then, I've worked in many different guises, doing many different things. And as you can tell from this accent, originally from the UK, I was one of those folks that actually did a lot of work in the UK for change stuff in government. And then 10 years ago, I moved to Canada and I've been here running my business Capillary and doing a lot of space work in change consulting, change coaching, and education and learning opportunities as well. Part of my, I suppose, qualifications to talk on this subject is that I have a master's in change management. That's what I've actually achieved, as well as many other pieces of work. And I was one of the founding members of the Association of Change Management Professionals. But I'm also a qualified project manager, program manager, portfolio manager. I'm a Scrum Master. I've done many pieces of work in project space and led many programs, projects, etc. with my change hat on and without my change hat on. And it's always fascinated me how people get confused about the relationship between change management and project management, to sometimes be in the case where people just get so blinkered, they focus purely on one or the other. So this topic subject really shouted out to me as something I wanted to share with you. It's something I've talked with many people about over time, but let's dig into this and see where we go. So what is change management? So when I talk to lots of project management groups and talk to people in project management space, the first thing they see when they see change management is they go, oh, it's that kind of people-y stuff, the soft and fluffy, pink and fluffy stuff that you have to go and, like, you know, make people feel nice about things and actually talk to them and engage things and just get things done. And then when I flip the coin the other side and I say, okay, project managers, what do you make of them, change management community? And the first thing that comes up is like, oh my gosh, all there is like OCD people. They just write plans and plans and plans and Gantt charts and do all this stuff that comes up, and it's all this about everything to do with kind of how much happens when, and they just kind of pin you down to numbers and everything like that all the time. And I kind of find these stereotypings really irritating, because there's far more to the capacity and capability of what project managers successfully do and change managers successfully do. So let's actually do a bit of baselining quickly to kind of make sure that we're clear on this, not the misconception, the misperceptions of things. So first and foremost, let's talk about a definition of change management. And I've started with this one because you'll see that I will mix the order of things quite a few times as we go through today. And this definition actually comes from the standard for change management by the ACMP. And it says change management is the support, advice, guidance, and their associated activities to enable people experiencing a change to successfully implement, adopt, and sustain the future state. Now, yeah, there are lots of words in this, and yeah, it's not exactly the easy thing to trip off the tongue, but I think there's some key pieces in this definition. Change management enables people experiencing a change to successfully get to where they need to go. Change management is about focusing on the pains, perils, challenges, and triumphs sometimes of people experiencing change as things move around them. So the role of change management is to help people navigate that experience better. And not just navigate it for that moment in time, but navigate it in a way that helps them to rationalize and realize the potential. Now, the next definition I have is managing change. And I just want to tweak on this, because a lot of people think change management is about managing change. Change is successfully delivered by people who do change management and people who do managing change. These both need to be present, but they actually have a slightly different definition. And managing change is about coordinating, connecting, or directing a number, I've got if, it should be of, interconnected tasks to go from an existing current state to a future state. So this is about coordinating tasks to get from where we were to where we need to be. Great. Managing change is about tasks. So we've got change management is about people. Managing change is about tasks. But what about project management? Project management is a series of managed tasks and activities which aim to deliver a product or output. So just a quick point for you. Notice any similarities in words between what is managing change and what project management is? There's a lot of overlap. So actually, project managers manage change. They actually do the tasks that are required to move from where we were to where we need to be, to create that output, to create that thing, that product, that whatever that sort of end result piece is. Which means that for any change to successfully happen, we need project management's presence to make sure the tasks and activities are delivered. And we need change management to be present to actually support the people experiencing those tasks and changes. But it doesn't always go that way. Not everybody sees and recognizes that situation. So what do we have here? Well, in today's business environment, we have a lot of challenges in how we deliver change. We have projects, we have programs, we have a whole range of things set up for people to actually deliver things. And there's many people researching how can we actually connect and collaborate project management and change management. Sometimes people suggest, oh, well, we'll just get project managers to do the change management stuff and it'll all be good. Or somebody will say, oh, we don't need change management. We'll just get somebody to come in and do some comms work and it's all good. It's very, very fluid. There's a lot of fluidity. In actual fact, back in 2015, IBM did a study, and they do a lot of studies, and I recommend if you get the chance to go and look up their global studies they do every 3 years, I think it is, on change, and they research a number of organizations on this. But they said that trying to integrate change management into the delivery of projects in today's business environment has a lot of challenges, a lot of problems, a lot of issues. Part of that being change management benefits are not clear. So people don't really know, so why are we doing this for change management? What is the actual thing? You know, apart from kind of making people smile a bit more and that, what is the actual thing that happens? Change management activities don't really get clearly understood. And that role of the person doing change management is not very well understood. So all of this comes down to that kind of like lack of clarity about the role of change management. Yes, there's a lack of skilled change management resources. I can speak to this from my own expertise, and I'm sure many others that you might chat with who are involved in anything to do with change. At the moment, there's only one person qualified in change management for every 10 people qualified in project management. And that number isn't shrinking very much, which means it's a really, really challenging space. And people think it's too expensive. This idea of, so I'm going to pay somebody to come and do something or build a cost into a project for something that I can't actually see the clear benefits of and the tasks and the deliverables. Now, this is 5 years old, and my challenge piece on this is that when we look at the way things are evolving monthly, irrespective of the experience of 2020 and all those sort of challenges we've had to deal with, there's a lot of pieces that we need to consider around how actually we understand change management. Because the biggest difficulty is not these, it's actually the understanding piece and understanding the complementary pieces between project management and change management. So when we look at project management or change management, I kind of want to look at a few pieces side by side for you and go through around what each do. Because when we come down to it, what does each actually do? What's the thing? What's the level of success? What is it that we say has happened to say that these things are successful? Well, project management is time, scope, and budget versus change management being about engage, educate, and communicate things. So in a way, we're talking about output versus outcome, where output is a thing, outcome is a behavior. So that does really mean products versus behaviors. The things we use and the way we use them. The things that are delivered versus how we get them delivered. As a human being, and you can all think about this yourself and what you do every day, you think, hopefully, before most actions that you take. And you want to make sure that the actions you take have the best impact you possibly can have. So whatever you are trying to deliver, you try to deliver it in the best way, the most effective way, the most efficient way. That means you're thinking about your behaviors as you deliver that product, that output that you're trying to do. And that's in life, never mind in the workplace doing projects. So when we consider some elements here, and I'm going to kind of scan through some of this stuff that I've got here, but because I know you'll have copies of slides afterwards and everything like that, so I don't want to worry too much about, you know, helping you to read what's on a slide. I want to give you more information around what's on the slide. But it is important for us to recognize the complementary side-by-side nature of what change management and project management does. We have this idea that change management's intent is to make sure that whatever's changing is adopted and integrated with the people. For project management is to make sure that the best solution is created and delivered to the space that needs it to effectively operate. So there's that back to that focus piece on people versus task. Now, there's lots and lots of process pieces, and I've kind of done a sample piece here from a PMBOK on the right side, and on the left side, this is actually from the ACMP standard for change management, so the equivalent without it being a body of knowledge as such. But where we have things here, project management is about start, plan, do, make sure it's done right, and then close it off. Change management is about, let's check we're good to start, work out how we're going to do things, develop the plans, deliver on the plans, and then close off the success. Sounds kind of similar. It's just maybe the fine print and the detail underneath. And that's where we get to the tools that each uses. And thinking about the different stuff and the different items and areas that we might use in each space. So we have common tools used in change management, might be things like a particular model or methodology that you want to use, readiness assessments, communications plans, sponsor roadmaps, coaching plans, training plans, some work on resistance and stakeholder engagement, all that sort of stuff, and how we're going to make things stick. And then we see from the project management side, you've got that sort of project charters, business case pieces, the WBS and Gantt charts being done, budgeting, costing stuff, resources, all of that sort of allocation piece, and then scheduling and tracking. So when we look at the tools, this is where we start to see some differences coming in. The tools that the project manager uses are focused on delivery of what's needed, making sure things come in at the right time, making sure things that are dependent on other things are considering what's necessary. And then similarly, from a change management point of view, we have a focus. Think about it. If you put the word people in front of each one of those statements there, it's all about the people side. So you start to see how project management and change management activity are developing different artifacts through a successful change initiative. So this is where you start to see differences coming in. You start to see different pieces of stuff. And then you kind of go into something like, you know, how do they say success has happened? Well, really, for change management, it's whether people do what they're supposed to be doing. Do they get up to speed on what they should be doing? Do they say anything? Do they do what should be expected of them? Results and outcomes are dependent on individuals adopting the change. So this is the primary focus. For a project manager, the intended results and outputs take a secondary role behind the time and budget. And this is one of my challenge pieces when we ask any project manager to do change management activity at the same time as project management activity without being properly resourced, is that we're asking them to actually deliver far more deliverables than is expected of them under a project management process map. But you can see some of the differences here, side by side. Again, we're back to technical delivery versus behavioral delivery. We're talking about, has a technical element been delivered on time, budget, etc., or have the people adopted and embraced the new in sufficient time to make it effective in the workplace? So based on what we said at the beginning, or what I said at the beginning from that IBM survey piece, one of the biggest challenges is making sure people understand what we're talking about with change management. And this is where we need to kind of just highlight some of the sort of typical roles of change management. And I'm doing this for the basis of helping people to understand that change management is not just about going and giving people hugs and saying it's all going to be good and better for them. It's actually quite tangible stuff that gets involved. And the ACMP defines change management, and I've given a lot of that stuff already, I'm not going to go into, but think about that application of knowledge, skills, abilities, and methodologies to do the transition piece. But the change management processes, when properly applied, ensure individuals in an organization efficiently and effectively transitions through change so that the organization's goals are realized. And that second bullet on this page is really important, because for me personally, I would say that successful change management is not just about making people feel happy, like I said about my first thing. It's actually about delivering organizational goals. Every organization has a strategy and purpose for why they exist and why they want to deliver. What is it that they're doing that they want to get to? Where do they want to get to? So for me, I think that it's really important that we recognize that change management is focused on delivering organizational goals, and activity starts at the very beginning of change, not when people first start complaining about the change. Change managers can take various names, labels, whatever you want to call it, but effectively a change management lead person is the person who's accountable for that change strategy stuff, having the individual control each day of what's happening, and that kind of project schedule for change activity. They also have primary liaison to the change sponsor, project manager, leadership, project teams, stakeholders, etc. They're an integral part of the cogs, make up the engine, the delivery of change. We have change agents who may be people who are not that full-time activity, but work within the space to actually support change, that are a team leader, a director, a manager. And they have responsibility within various spaces within an organization to support the change being delivered. And then we have things like change management professionals, like the association of, and they need to be set in the broad knowledge set that's required to actually enable effective change management to take place. Change management people might be inside a company, might be outside a company consulting, maybe moving between both. I've worked myself in situations where I've been the external working with an internal change group. I've also been the change person outside and the change person inside. There's a lot of fluidity on this stuff. But this is what it comes down to. And this is my key word and my key takeaway for today. And I'm going to talk some more. So sorry to disappoint you, we're not over yet. There's still a bit more to go. But it's about creating partnership. Project management and change management need to be in partnership to successfully deliver change. Let me expand on that. The standard for change management from the association said, project management and change management are complementary yet distinct disciplines that may overlap during change delivery and are often independent when delivering value to the organization. Key there, distinct but overlapping and complementary. It's not about two separate silos of activity. It's about two people side by side cooperating and collaborating. The degree of overlap and interdependency can vary. So some people will be heavy on the project, some people will be heavy on the change. And I would even say that depends on the nature of the change. If it's a big scale technology implementation, chances are it'll be heavy on the project management, maybe light on the change management. But if it's something where you're changing the whole culture of an organization through a massive restructuring and repositioning of values, you might have a lot heavier change management people focus than the project management stuff. It's moving parts. It's like those weighing scales that move up and down. So side by side, change management practice is about doing change management, not just by people designated as change managers, but also any executive or senior leaders sponsoring the change, and any managers and supervisors coaching, supporting, navigating their way through the change with the people that they work with day in, day out. This also means that change management is not just an isolated activity in a box. It's something that needs to be practiced across a broad base of an organization. People need to understand how people respond to change, react to change, and can deliver successful change within their part of any business, organization, community, or society even. Whereas typically practiced by a project manager, the project management is that focus on the task and activities and the project team. So they do tend to be a lot more distinct, a lot more separated from the business. I actually think that's wrong. I actually think the partnership is about having this as a much more blended than a block piece for people. It's got to be about recognizing that there are touch points between both that will help. And that means that that partnership can have a methodology and plan that overlaps both project management and change management spaces where they need to. Yes, change management efforts may well begin before and continue after a project initiation phase, but there are opportunities, particularly in tools, where you can actually combine activities to create something more robust for the success of the business delivery. For instance, one of the most common ones I talk about is communications and communications plans, and it's mentioned here under tools and resources. Primarily from a project management mindset, communication plan is about what needs to be said, to who and when. Perfect. From a change management point of view, it's about the content of what is being said and the result of that information changing behavior. So combining these together allows a robust communication plan to structure what communications are happening to who and when, and ensure that you've got measures of success for each of those communications by stating the content of that communication has a purpose and a meaning that will also deliver an outcome that's desirable that becomes your measure of success. So you can look at other things like resource plans, risk plans, all that sort of stuff, even down to lessons learned log towards the end of the change initiation period and beyond. You can share objectives and outcomes. You can actually say, what is the purpose of this? The purpose of this IT system is to deliver the new IT system and get people using it, not just to deliver the IT system. So make a strategic objective. Make it clear that the objective for the overall change project is not just about technical delivery, but technical delivery and adoption. And when you consider risks to successful delivery, don't just look at risks to technical delivery. Think about risks in terms of what happens if that team over there doesn't adopt this? What happens if that team over there takes 3 months to go through their training activity rather than the 3 weeks we thought they'd do? These are also risks that come in from the change space and can be integrated into a common risk plan. So overall, what I'm saying is that there's a relationship between sponsor, project manager, change manager, and change event. Now, it's the first time I've mentioned the word sponsor here. And I could probably talk for several hours about the challenges that both project managers and change managers experience in engaging with sponsors. The most common types of sponsors, and there are two of them. The sponsor who thinks they're actually the project manager and tries to micromanage every activity that's done by the PM. And then the sponsor who plays the part of, don't come and speak to me unless I need to, because I'm going to ignore everything you do unless it's absolutely a disaster happening. So either all hands in or the all hands off. And that's just as frustrating for change management, because the sponsor will start quoting things at people and say things like, oh, well, have you spoken to this person? Have you spoken to that person? What are you doing to speak with this stakeholder? All of these different things coming into play. So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole of the sponsor, but I want people to recognize that the challenges that project managers have with sponsors are the same types of challenges that change managers have with sponsors. And sometimes working collaboratively helps to do a little bit of the managing up of the sponsor that needs to take place for the successful delivery of the change event. So I just wanted to finish off for a couple of minutes before I open up for questions and opportunities for any other thoughts and pieces that people want to know, by throwing in the Agile word. And I'm not going to talk to you in big detail. I've got a screenshot here about Agile versus Waterfall stuff and all this sort of pieces. And, you know, it's got a few pieces and stuff. So when we actually look at this, the actual visual, I suppose, is the piece I want you to focus on. On the left side, we have Agile, circular. On the right side, we have Waterfall, kind of sequential line, sort of step down, step across type piece. So for me, I want to highlight the Agile space and how we are seeing a lot more collaboration coming from Agile methodologies into the change space, as opposed to Waterfall. What we're seeing is, because the majority of approaches to change delivery, I'll say, change management activity, change management methodologies, are focused on a cycle of continuous activity, a cycle of activity that says change never stops. Well, I'm sure all of you here know change never stops. Heraclitus was the one that says the only constant in life is change. I'd go with death and taxes as well, but that'll do for starters. But what we see is this cyclic piece going on because change is continuous. And what we're discovering, and I speak from somebody who's more anchored in the change space, is that Agile project management is becoming a greater support mechanism to change management delivery than maybe Waterfall ever managed to make itself able to do. What we're seeing is the nature of that sprinting cycle, the continuous activity, the fact that Agile sprints require us to be reshaping, reforming our approach every few weeks, whatever the length of that sprint is, means that the people involved are always looking and comfortable for something changing. It's never like, no, we have to do this document because this is the document we do, and then we go to this one, and then we go to this one. It's almost kind of opened up a little bit of the restrictions that Waterfall project management in partnership with change management activity was feeling as a pressure point. And I think for me, this is where we've transitioned in the project management space to demonstrate a stronger partnership between change management and project management, is the integration of Agile approaches. The fact that Agile includes customers, consumers, client engagement means that we've already talking to stakeholders in that space. The fact that we recognize things like flexible activities going through, that we actually bring small teams together, constantly reviewing things to see how we can do things better. We're recognizing that change takes place. I'd even say the Agile mindset is a constantly change-ready space. And when I looked at the title for this section and thought about it, it made me realize that that kind of, you know, is change management and project management together or against each other. Part of that comes down to thinking about the way that maybe people's perception and experiences of waterfall project management have caused some clashes in the past for change management. And I'm really thrilled and excited as we move forward that Agile is enabling us to have a much more compatible relationship with project management and change management than anything that we've experienced before. So that's all I'm going to say. That's my final piece. I could keep talking for several hours, but anybody who knows me knows I'm very opinionated on things. But I wanted to make sure there was plenty of space for people to ask questions and share any thoughts and stuff like that. This is my contact information. I'm always happy to talk change with anybody. Anybody who knows me knows I'm always talking, doing stuff and things like that. I also teach project management at a couple of colleges and part of university advisory boards for project management and project leadership as well. And also my own company, and I think you've been seeing some of the ads going through, we deliver our own sort of programs and workshops and stuff like that as well in the change space, including a workshop that's purely designed towards change management for project managers to actually help themselves. So if you want any more information, please feel free to look at the website, get in touch with me, etc. But I'm curious if anybody's got any questions, and I'm going to open up the chat and see if anybody's got any stuff going on in there. And oh my, Kerry's been full of conversation. So unlike you, Kerry. All right. So I'm happy to take questions in the chat box, or if you're feeling brave, you can actually talk to me. I'm also okay with that as well.
Hey, Rich, this is Chris Carter. I have struggled mightily over the years, and I'm along a pretty similar timeline as you.
Yeah, be tactful on that stuff. No ages, please.
with balancing project management, change management, value management, and a whole bunch of other managements, and they're all different perspectives, and I've ultimately come to the conclusion that I mean, they're all different sides of the same coin, which is about making change happen. And I really liked that definition that you brought up on an earlier slide. That really crystallized the topic for me. But one way that I've been able to move forward is to differentiate between what are the types of projects that require change management more than let's say others. And where I've landed is in many of the programs I'm involved in now are transformation. So when by definition, I think transformation requires different disciplines to be applied, not just project management, not just change management, but also significant stakeholder management and engagement, which is a form of change management. I get it, but when you get into the leadership side of things, now you're into a different role, and governance in particular in the public sector, where I do a lot of my work, is you have to be pretty sophisticated on that regard. And then there's just some of the nuts and bolts of project management, which I think get underplayed, especially around proactive risk management. So anyways, that's how I've tried to pull it together to not make it so oppositional, to your point.
Yeah,
because they aren't different, they are complementary. But for what purpose? So thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for the point, the comments there. I think it's always an interesting piece for me with the conversation when maybe I'm starting a client engagement or doing some work about where the balance goes on that stuff. And it's fascinating for me because sometimes you start off with the education of what the ask or the person making the ask understands they're asking for, as opposed to the words that they're using. And I like your reference to transformational pieces, because yes, there's some people who don't understand what transformation means, because some people just think big changes, transformations, whereas actually transformation is, you know, caterpillar to butterfly stuff and things like that. It's like, you know, going to the heart of what's happening to make the change. And I love a piece that's going on at the moment, you know, 2020, it's the cartoon that's out there. What prompted your digital transformation experience? Was it your CIO? Was it your CTO? Was it your CHRO? Or was it COVID-19? And the whole point being that, you know, we've all had to go through that transformation piece. But that's where I think you're right, is I've tried to talk to people when we're doing transformational activities to explain that you need to create the nuts and bolts of what's changing, but no transformation will take place unless you've got the people on board with what that change is. It's a bit like, as you say, leadership, understanding that their role is not to get caught up in the weeds. Their role is to enable people to do what's expected of them based on the roles that they have. And this is where you have that, you know, complementary side-by-side activity between change delivery being done for those nuts and bolts and technical delivery, you know, whatever the new systems are, whatever the new stuff is, and then bringing the change management stuff in to make sure that people don't run away scared from it, you don't have massive turnover of staff, and a whole range of other things, as well as that education and engage piece. And I think that's really important for me. And I sort of say this as a simplest way for a lot of people, is recognizing that at its core, change management is about education, engagement, and communications that helps people move forward in where they need to do. And if you can get those things right, then actually most change will be successful. It comes back to the age-old phrase of sort of, you know, if you manage the people well, the people will manage the work. Don't try and manage the work directly or the people will revolt. So it comes back to a little bit of that piece. Enable the people so that they can actually make the change. I'm just reading some of the stuff. It's good to see the ISO stuff coming in, Peter. I'm noticing your point in the comment stuff. I'm kind of putting a watching piece on this, because one of the things that I'm interested in is how people define organizational. Because for me, an organization is a group of people with a common purpose. Doesn't have to be a business. It can be a community, it can be an association, it can be anything, it can be an organization. And far too often people think of organizational change management only taking place when there's a technology implementation inside a business down in the heart of downtown or whatever, whereas it's far more broader than that. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that kind of supports, I don't know what words I'm looking for here. I visualize the kind of like multi-part sort of puzzle pieces coming together around that stuff, and how that's going to flesh out as we go forward with things, because I'm kind of intrigued by that side of things. There's a friend, colleague of mine, and something I do with one of the universities that I'm part of the advisory council for, is actually called Transformational Project Leadership. And it basically covers the fact that we need leadership development, project management activities, and change management activities all together to make transformations a success. And I think that's some of the stuff that links back to what we were just talking about. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, challenges that you'd like to ask me about? I will eventually get round to reading Kerry's long spiel in the chat box. I got halfway down. Yeah, I think that the final comment from Kerry, I think that's the key piece to me, is recognizing that although there may be common anchors for every organization, we also have to flex and bend to fit whatever we do with each organization. And that goes to the culture of each organization is quite unique as well. So whenever we're trying to do that kind of compatible, connected delivery between PM, CM activity, we need to recognize that. I'd also say it's PM, CM, HR, communications, learning and development, strategy development, all those things also need to be put into place. You know, it's a bit like the age-old argument of a PMO isn't just a bucket of all project managers. A PMO is a strategic purpose to actually deliver against all the projects in an organization. So some of that sort of stuff needs to be challenged. Anything else from anybody else? Silence. Okay, well, I guess we're at 2:45 and nobody's got any more comments for me. So we're done, I suppose. You've got my details on screen still. If anybody needs anything from me, please feel free to reach out. Happy to have a conversation, connect with me on LinkedIn, whatever. Give your own contributions to my opinionated pieces that I put out there from time to time, and more than happy to chat. So thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure.